here. Brandon Johnson.
Here.
And our attorneys, I see Keenan and Bryson, I think, is still on as well.
Yes.
Good.
Okay. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
I'm going to need to add just one thing in my report, just regarding the application of our sales tax funds toward the payments. We need to make that motion to apply them for the year every January.
Okay. Do you want to do that under the attorney's report, Keenan?
Please.
Okay.
Guys, I don't know if anybody can hear me, but I'm on the phone call. I can't find my way on to the Zoom meeting.
Hey, Ralph.
Thanks, Ralph.
Hi, Ralph.
Hey guys.
Sound good and strong on that phone.
All right, good. My Wi-Fi, my internet connection's real sporadic where I am. So I'll stay on the phone line here and I'll keep trying to log on the Zoom call too.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public that would like to make some comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the, go ahead. Hearing none, we'll go to the consent agenda.
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from the December meeting as presented.
This is
I'll
Brandon.
second it. It's Bill.
I got one correction on that.
Oh,
On the second page under facility review report, it's got my name there and then it has Reynolds after that. We need to either strike that or put my last name on there.
Okay,
second page.
okay. Any other changes?
It's not a change, but I did want to clarify one thing on the bills. The Ralph's invoice 54 and the 3 non-construction bills, those checks have already gone out. Per Kelly McCabe's advice, he said, as a course of business, we can send those out after the last meeting and just to include them in the January bills to ratify them for total approval.
Okay. Barring no other changes, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the correction on Brandon Johnson's name on the second.
Second.
Well, now wait a minute. You're approving the consent agenda. I have problems with payment of bills. We can approve the minutes, but I want to talk about the bills.
Okay, Gayla, let's talk about the bills.
Okay, and Rob I think it was Rob, just said that the payments to non-construction and to Ralph Wagner have already been paid, and also the one to Colorado Special Districts has already been paid, but there's a problem between the McCabe bill on the cover sheet that says $3,933.05, but the invoice, and actually it isn't a regular invoice from Mr. McCabe, it's just a cover invoice, says $3,993.05. So we've got a $60 issue there. How much should we really be paying McCabe? I know, depend upon me to be a problem.
We should be paying the actual invoice amount.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm caught up in the liability pools extensive folder.
Yeah, that one goes on forever, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So that thank you. That should be 3,993.05.
Okay, thank you.
So I will make that change.
Okay, so that brings our total then for payment to $124,005.77.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
All right.
Does that sound good?
Thank you,
Does
Gayla.
that sound right to you, Rob?
Depend upon me to be picky.
I appreciate it. It keeps us from writing a check for the wrong amount.
Well, yeah, that would be. You don't want to do that. Okay, well, I'll second your motion to approve the consent agenda as corrected.
Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion on that? Hearing none, then all approve? All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda passes. I guess on to SHS report. Tom, are you online, Tom?
Yep, I'm on having some. I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You're fading in and out,
Can you hear me?
Tom.
Yeah.
All right, how's that? Better?
Yeah.
Hold on, let me see if I can get my volume if it's a volume issue. Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, hopefully you can hear me. We did have a nice employee forum today, and we awarded Rick Meyer and Alan Laird Employee Year.
You're fading in and out, Tom.
Is Mark Meyer? I'm sorry. Mark is the. Okay, I'm not sure. Let me try this. That ain't better. Any better with that? Let me call in.
That sounds better.
I'll hand it off to. Is that better? Okay. As I said, Mark Meyer and Alan Laird were awarded Employees of the Year. Mark is the lead pharmacist in the infection, or he's in the infection control program, and Alan is the lab director. Well deserved, but I wanted to make sure that the rest of the staff knew how well they were doing and continuing to operate the hospital
Tom, I don't know what's going on.
during a
but
very
it sounds
trying
like you're playing
time.
a guitar.
I did see that we had a group of folks over 70 getting vaccinations today, so that's all good news as well.
Tom, we lost you. Hello, Tom. Tom, can you guys hear me?
I hear you, Dean. I think we did lose Tom.
Hey, Tom, we lost you.
Yeah, I think he's off completely now.
Tony, Tony, can you expound on what Tom was talking about?
Sure, talk a little. Yeah, he was, he mentioned a couple things. One thing was we held our,
Okay, I'm calling back in.
we're getting a lot of feedback too. It might be helpful if you're not talking to mute. Let me I'll give it another try here. As I was saying, we held our vaccine clinic today, started for doing the over 70s, did about 300, I think about 300 vaccines, and we're going to continue to be doing that for a while. We ended up on the employee side, we had about 70, I think it ended up being about 78% of our staff actually ended up getting vaccinated, which actually was better than I expected it would be, but it actually turned out pretty well. Otherwise, with COVID, things are going, pretty well right now. We've been a little bit up and down. Today's census, I think we had about 16 patients in the house, and 4 of those were COVID. And it said last week it was extremely slow. We were Friday, we were down to about 8 patients and only had 1 COVID in the house. But again, we're starting to see that pick back up a little bit. And I think we're starting to see an increase in the positivity rate, which we expected would happen right after the holidays. So it's kind of anticipated where we are now, but we're going to continue doing the vaccines. We have about 3,000 patients over that are over 70 that we're going to be working through and do as vaccines become available. Unfortunately, we don't know until we're not told until Friday what our vaccine allocation is going to be for the next week. So it makes it a very challenging scenario in trying to get everybody scheduled in a pretty short period of time. That's kind of where we are right now anyway. Any questions on anything I can ask for you?
Well, I want to know about this COVID vaccine. I thought the county health department was going to be doing the vaccines for the general public, but it sounds to me like the hospital is doing.
Well, yes, sort of. We're definitely doing all of our patients that are over 70. We're kind of working in partnership with the health department, but primarily what we are focusing on right now is our patients that are over 70. And like I said, we have about 3,000 of those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony, thanks for picking that up. I'm back on the phone. Can you hear me?
I can, much clearer this time.
Yeah, I'm on the phone rather than Zoom. I'm not sure what the problem is. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. Anybody else have any questions for me?
When?
What was that, Brad?
When are these older people like myself and a few others going to be able to have the availability of that?
Anybody 70 and over can get the vaccine now.
Right now?
Yes.
Okay, what do we have to do?
All you have to do is contact your physician and they'll get you set up. Actually, we should have been calling out to you. But if you're one of our patients and over 70, you will be getting a call from us to get that arranged.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to double check on that, Tony, because I'm sure that they're going to get a hold of us.
Yeah, they will eventually.
Appreciate that.
All right.
Well, nobody else is talking, so I'll ask you another question, Tony.
Sure.
How's our flight machine working?
That seems to be going really well right now. They've seem to be staying fairly busy, And, we've done a couple things. We had to put in some stairs so they have access for their fueling truck and everything, but it seems to be going well for the first month or so anyway.
Good, thank you.
Mhm.
Tom, did you have anything else to add to the board report?
No, I think Tony got most of that. Little I heard, I think he got it.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, though.
Tony, I guess we'll look to you for the operations report that you've got.
Rick, you're going to talk about the financials?
I know they're in the packet. We've only approved them in finance. We have not approved them by the full SHS board.
Has the SHS board ever changed the financials? Or is this just a procedure sort of a thing?
It's parliamentary, but if Tom wants to give us a green light, I can hit him pretty quick.
I mean, yeah, if you want, if MCHD wants to hear it, please do.
Yes, please.
Okay. Bridget, if you'll scroll down a little bit. We had a pretty strong November from a standpoint of volume and earnings, and unfortunately we saw a lot of COVID activity in the month of November. From a cash standpoint, we didn't do too bad, collecting about $4.3 million. We did kind of book and record the DOLA grant information along with another grant. So thank you guys for helping us out with that. That was slightly over 112. And then we had another $10,000 grant. The foundation did give us a check for about $40,000 for the BD Max test kits. Basically, we did pay for our Olympus scopes. We had some non-core business days. We only had about 18 business days because we had Thanksgiving Friday, as well as weekends and Veterans Day in there. So thank you guys. Thanks to all of you who served. Inventory did increase slightly. Prepaid expenses did decrease. That was a prepaid insurance policy primarily. From a liability standpoint, we decreased our AP by about $84,000. Our payroll liabilities, again, because there's only 1 month that ends at 28 days, and that's February. So we had an extra couple of days of payroll liabilities. We're at 274. We did get a nice little, basically a letter from the state regarding a rural health clinic cost report from 2016. And we've been paying on that for, I guess, the last couple of months. At the end of year, December, we owe about $283,000 to those folks. I cringe at letters that we get from the state Medicaid office. So revenue over expense was $8,000 year to date. It's $583,000. Our EBITDA was right under $500,000 at $495,000, and year to date EBITDA improved to 6.2. Again, we had a busy November in terms that gross revenue was above budget by 1.2, and total net revenue was in excess of budget by about 600,000. Staff salaries, they were above budget by 226,000. Again, we didn't expect the amount of volumes that we had. Therefore, we also had a couple of new departments, such as COVID departments, and we had a couple of additional practitioners that were hired. So our staff salaries did increase over budget. We budgeted November and December as our lowest months because we wanted to get the bulk of the budget knocked out in the first 9-10 months of the year. Learned that lesson for budgeting for 2021. We kind of spread it a little bit little bit more evenly based on some volumes, and then when we have some new recruited physicians. Outside of that, there wasn't really anything extraordinary other than the fact that we're doing a ton of COVID tests, and we do have Quest, which is where we send out a lot of our COVID tests and other tests. That invoice is normally about $60,000. Just in November, it went up to $220,000 for sending it out. Part of that's part of that's a result of not having the BD Max test because they kind of limited our supply. We were our test kit limits are down, and that's the rapid test that we normally you can get a result within about 6 or 8 hours. We did order a lot of pharmaceuticals and pharmacy related items, and to be honest with you, we filled almost 4,000 prescriptions. So our retail pharmacy is just up and going. Outside of that, there's really nothing out there to speak of in terms of a narrative standpoint. Want to see if you guys had any questions, Gayla, primarily on the income statement or balance sheet.
No, you answered my only question. As
Okay.
I was wondering why you were sending out so many tests because we have that machine, but you answered that. So that was the only thing that struck me as being. Well, I had wondered why the salaries were so much higher than budgeted, but you explained that also. So
yes,
you're
ma'am.
doing a fine job. You're keeping
Thank
me
you.
happy.
Thank you. That is what Dean and Fred said I had to do.
Oh,
said I
was
had to
that
keep
the
you happy.
case?
Yes, ma'am. So yeah, basically what they did is they expanded the factory to produce more of the Becton Dickinson supplies, and they say they were giving us probably about maybe 10-15% of our usual allotments, and then it just we've started getting back to our budgeted allotment now, but with like a surge across the country and so forth, we're not back to what we have. I think we may have maybe about 900 test kits in inventory, and these are the $47 kits that we that basically we have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any more questions for Rick on the financials?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move on to, thank you, Rick. We'll move
Yeah,
on
thank you.
Rob, on our financials.
On our financials, the tax, just had to make sure I was unmuted. The tax that came in is, there is a $910.45, $13,425.79, and then also $128,061.25. So the total tax revenue that's come in this month is $142,217.49. Our net unrestricted cash is $2,070,835.49. And one other thing on the financials, I have asked Daniel Mosier from Zion Wealth Services to come in next month and give us a 5 to 10 minute presentation and room for us to ask some questions about what we can invest in and be able to get our cash invested.
Very good. Anybody have any questions for Rob on the financials?
No, don't guess so.
Are you sure, Gayla?
Well, I did have that question about McCabe's billing, but we got that resolved, and Rob had already mentioned that Mr. McCabe told him that it was okay to go ahead and pay Wagner and Davis and
it was the three Wagner and the three nuns, yeah.
The nuns, yeah, okay. And we also paid Southwest Health Systems on a DOLA grant that I don't believe that was approved, but we know how crazy that is. So, in the Colorado Special Districts, I don't believe we approved that one either, but it got paid. But I don't see anything there that is strange.
Yeah, the DOLA money is still coming in. We're approved for the 112, and Bridget could help me with that. But we're approved for the 112, and it's possible that we haven't heard back from them, but they may approve us for an additional $5,000 or so, and we'd have to write a check to SHS for that, and then we'd be reimbursed through DOLA. I'm checking in with our accountants to make sure that we're getting that reimbursement.
Yeah, I'm trusting you to be watching these things as they come and go, because I can't keep up with them.
Yeah, I basically am just keeping track of the total amount, and I'll debit it off. We'll receive it in a few different chunks, and I'll debit it off until we're not owed anymore by DOLA. And yeah. Did you have any other questions, Bill?
No.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Rob. Foundation.
Yeah, I just have a couple quick things. We are hiring someone part-time on Monday. I mean, we've hired them, but we're signing paperwork and contract and all that stuff on Monday. So I'll be able to announce who we hired and what we'll be doing at the next meeting.
Okay, anything else on the foundation?
No, we're going to be working our meetings next week, and we're going to be working on the next round of in-hospital grants that we've been working on for about the last year.
Okay, very good. I guess facilities, Ralph, you want to talk about the water line extension?
I hope you guys can hear me. I might actually be on here about 3 different times because I had to log on about 3 different times. And so I may be on, maybe really burning up the data down here. But so as far as the water line extension goes, I have had a surveyor out there which who produced an easement across Keith Evans' property. But then I've stopped going any further because as Dean or Keenan pointed out, maybe at the last meeting, we really need to have, or Brandon, we really need to have the water agreement tied down before we spend any money on preparing for construction. Now, I have had a phone call with SSR this morning with Davis and SSR, and they've had a hydraulic engineer working on the first draft of a design for the system, but we're not going any farther than that. So, and I should see that in the next couple of days.
Okay. The next item is the facility improvements that we put the project bid out for.
Can I add a little bit to the water line extension discussion, Dean?
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Kelly was able to get some pretty good conversations over the past couple of days with Keith Evans, and basically what Keith is offering, which and we'll get that, we should be able to get an agreement upon board approval here very quickly, is to sell, as we've previously discussed, the 5 shares which would come with the membership into the pipeline from Keith, which would result in a capacity for the district putting 8 shares into that pipeline. We would actually own 5 through the purchase from Keith, but like I said, we would have the capacity to do more, which I think would be very beneficial to the district in particular, with the county possibly wanting to get involved with the construction of this pipeline down there right away. Included in that agreement would be all of the easements that Ralph was just discussing. Keith has no issue with that. The only thing that I don't know that has specifically been addressed with the board that Keith was asking for is there's about 200 feet of his pipe that basically is going from the big main pipeline over to where his head gate is that we're tying into. He would want some sort of maintenance agreement with the district to help share in any future maintenance costs of that specific section of pipe. Kelly and I discussed that, and we think that's probably pretty reasonable and something that we could put in the easement agreements.
So this is Brandon. When Dean and I and Rob met out there with Keith Evans that one day, I thought the deal was for 7 or 8 shares.
It's for 8 shares in the pipeline. It's for a capacity of 8 shares, but he's actually only selling us 5 shares. Where we get the other shares from would be up to the district, if the district wanted them.
So he's only selling 5 of his shares. If we wanted 8, we'd be purchasing that on our own for additional capacity.
Well, with the way the agreement in that pipeline works is basically you can, whatever many shares you buy in for, you can expand it. So we would be purchasing 5 actual MVI shares from Keith, but we would have the right to put 8 shares of water in that pipeline. So he would be selling the 5 shares for about $5,000 a share, $25,000. And then to get in on the pipeline, there's a $5,000 initiation fee, and then $1,000 per share of capacity, so $13,000 to get into the pipeline. So $38,000 total with 5 shares and our buy-in on the pipeline and the additional capacity.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for that. It'll probably be, the way the year's looking, it'll probably be higher next year. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And so I guess with that being said, I would like, I guess I would be seeking for a resolution from the board or a motion if the board believes that, which I think they have in the past, but just because we've got some more exact numbers and a little bit more of exact parameters of what it would look like, I would be seeking a motion from the board to have us continue into a formal agreement with you, as I've outlined here, and that way we can go ahead and get that done and have Dean with the authority to execute those documents.
I so move it.
Second that.
Okay, we have a Fred motion and Jay second. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Keenan, let's make it happen.
Yes, sir.
All right.
More work for you, Keenan.
Yeah. So,
Question, Keenan.
yeah, thanks, Keenan.
The other 3 shares, where will that come from?
That's really going to be an option of the district. We could lease 3 shares if we wanted to. The district could go out into another seller besides Keith and purchase another 3 shares. Or we could just allow me potentially with this, the possibility of joining with the county in the installation of this pipeline. We could, the board could consider just allowing the county to use that capacity with shares they already own.
That needs to be in that resolution to make darn sure that we've got the other three
Or
shares.
we could even lease them.
Or have we not? It's an option is what it is, but we should take it.
Well, it's not, once we buy the 5 shares, we have the right to put in an additional 3. Whether or not we have those 3 at this moment, we always will have the right to put in.
To put it in.
To put it in.
So
It's not,
just to clarify, we could do that 5 years down the line, 6 months down the line, whenever we want.
whenever you wanted. You actually are going to be owning 5 shares, but you have the capacity to put 8 in that. Yeah.
Would it be worthwhile asking the other members of the pipeline if any of them are interested in selling 3 shares and we could buy them? Just since we're kind of now all in business with them, and we could ask them first before we go to either rent or look somewhere else.
I think certainly, I don't know if the district needs 8 shares at this point. I think, Brandon maybe have a little bit better insight than me on that, but I think for the purposes of watering the grounds there at the hospital, the 5 shares is probably going to be more than sufficient. And
right.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah. So Keenan, the 5 will be plenty. I would wait on the 3 and not hang on that so tight, because I'm pretty sure those folks on that line, it'd be hard to release any water there. And you could probably, if you wait long enough, you can probably pick up 3 cheaper than 5 down the road. It looks like MBI is going to have an auction in March anyway for some shares. So, you can always pick them up a little bit cheaper than 5 if you hold out. But the main deal is now you've got access, so we need to make sure we get it to the property after you sign that deal.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Brandon's got such good thoughts there to keep us from losing our tail end on it.
Right. And then leasing's way easier too.
Okay. Anything further on the water line extension? All right, we'll move forward to the facility improvements. I believe that's referring to our recent bid proposal that we put out for phase 1 of a 2-phase project. Tony, have you guys made a decision, or have you got a thought on that? And what's your thoughts on a contractor for that project?
Yeah, as we discussed, and like I said, we discussed with Tom and some of our other board members, we have actually made the decision at this point to move ahead with Train. I know that's not the recommendation of some members of the committee, but there are some factors that go along with that. One thing is we want a Train unit in there. We've said that from the beginning. We have some concerns about going with the other company whose name I just totally forgot, but our history with those on the maintenance of those units has not been great. So we're looking at, that's one of the factors. Cost wise, they were within a few thousand. Actually, I think they were about 4, maybe 8,000 more than the, look here. Yeah, it looks like they were about $5,000 more than FCI, which is what the scoring had recommended. But we know that there's some savings on some other aspects that we go with Train. For example, on the controls alone, we'll save about $11,000 on that project if we go with the Train, which would actually bring them down below where FCI. And I know the committee didn't know that when they were looking at the scoring, but we know that. And there are some, Train being a provider for our GPO, our group purchasing organization. provide some advantages, some pricing advantages that we'll see beyond just the contractings and things that are come our way as far as rebates and they fall into that program that would actually reduce that cost even further. So at this point, that is what we've recommended and where we'll be moving forward. Tom, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I've reached out to our board and for their approval, and I've heard back from some of the board members, and we feel as though that Train is the organization that we want to move forward with. You know, I know that there were some concerns on your part, Dean, about our choice of them, but you know, we feel very comfortable. The SHS members of the facilities committee, Cody and me, are comfortable with that decision. You know, I think even within the facilities, the operational ends of the facilities at SHS within the hospital, I think they're comfortable with that choice as well. I think we will, as Tony explained, realize some additional savings down the road if we work with Train. And obviously, there's a long list of things that we need to work on. And I don't know if Train would be involved in that list down the road, but again, we're comfortable with Train.
So I just want to make the board fully aware that MCHD had no participation in this decision. The recommendation came back from the architect, the engineer, and our representative that FCI was far and above the more qualified and the best price for this project. I'll be honest, I'm a little disappointed that MCHD had no input in this decision. We've funded numerous projects in the benefit of SHS, from Mencke's Clinic to the Heil building for cash infusion, parking lot expansions, a $30 million project that included the patient wing, the MOB, and the EMS building. We're looking at a $100,000 project for the water line extension. All of these things are in benefit to SHS, and we were basically told SHS is making this decision without any input from MCHD. The other problem or the other issue that we are going to run into is that this is a two-phase project. First phase being what we're doing right now, second phase being what MCHD has agreed to fund on a phase 2 with partnership with DOLA. So we'll be directly funding that. And I'll be quite honest, I'm a little disappointed that there was no input from MCHD. I was basically told, no, we're making this decision all on our own, and that's the end of it. And I'm a little disheartened. I'll be quite honest. Our focus, MCHD's focus, has been to further the benefit of SHS, and I feel like we were left out. And the request of bids was at SHS's request, specifically Tony, and to get competitive bids. And we've thrown out, or we've chosen, a contractor who's the least qualified and the most expensive. And I think it'll hurt our credibility. It'll hurt SHS's credibility. It'll hurt MCHD's credibility, along with Ralph, SSR, and Davis. I don't know if we'll get any other bids on future projects with it going this way. So I just want to say that, and I want to open it up for discussion from MCHD if anybody has any comments they'd like to make on it.
Dean, this is Bill.
Yes, Bill.
Just a question. How much money is MCHD putting into this project, and we get no voice in it?
Well, phase 1 is fully funded by the COVID money from SHS. So
okay,
we've put in all the money, 100% for design and engineering. That's been a cost that we've borne 100%. we've put in money to Ralph Wagner to oversee this process. Phase 1 construction would be funded fully by SHS. Phase 2 construction, with the partnership with DOLA, we hope, would be fully funded by MCHD. So it's a partnership. It's not a one-sided deal, because we have talked about it being a change order for additional work for phase 2 with the same contractor. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Bill, but if SHS is putting in $700,000 or $800,000 on phase 1, MCHD's offered up $600,000 to $700,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, for phase 2. It's a pretty equal partnership. And I would assume that SHS would want input on phase 2. At the path we're going right now, we would just do that on our own. And I don't think that's the right path. I think we both boards want to continue working together and have input equally, especially on equipment being put into our building. So, Bill, I don't know.
Well, as a board member and as a taxpayer, I'm upset as a taxpayer that our tax dollars are getting spent for something that we have no say in.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Bill, to be accurate, the taxpayer money's not. I mean, we're funding this project. SHS is funding the project.
Phase 1 and 2?
Dean was not completely correct. This is not COVID money. We're using, this will be money that will be coming out of, we don't know for sure, we don't know for sure that this will be COVID money. We had hoped that possibly we could, but we don't know that for sure. Unfortunately, the definitions and the regulations regarding that are still in flux. So, but regardless, it's primarily SHS money that's funding this project.
Are you talking phase 1 or phase 2?
Phase 1, the project that Dean is talking about.
Well,
okay,
Tony,
but on phase 2, my understanding is you want $600,000 and some thousand from MCHD. Are we going to get any say in that?
As we have said all along, if MCHD is involved in the project, then yes, you will definitely have say in that project.
Well, didn't we have?
I'm sorry, Dean saying that you all had no input is not true. Apparently what Dean is implying as no input is we didn't agree with the recommendation. They did have input. They presented the project. We just had a different opinion than what Dean has on this. So it's not that they didn't have any input in it. We didn't agree with them. And we decided based on decisions, recommendations from CHC, people that we also have to deal with, that was the direction we needed to go. But so it wasn't
well,
that it had any input, is we didn't agree with Dean, is basically the problem.
If you have the go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
If SHS has the right to make the final decision, why are we paying for all the front work, design and everything?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it is a partnership. Understand that, and the SHS board and organization appreciates that development and design work that you spent over $100,000 on, and that's for not only phase 1 but for more work down the road. If I understand that design work that was originally done, when I read our lease with the district. The language in a couple of different parts of that lease doesn't preclude SHS from making the decision that we've made. I know it's not terribly popular because we didn't go with the organization the company that was recommended by MCHD, but I believe we have the ability within our lease to make a decision like this, albeit not terribly popular with Dean. It is a decision that I think
it's not just Dean.
Yeah. So
if we're going to have to pay for the upfront work and get no say in the decision, why are we spending money up front?
Well, let me be very clear about this. This is not me. This was a recommendation from the architect, the engineer, Ralph Wagner. I had no say-so in the scoring of these companies, but let me be very clear about something else. MCHD has had zero input in the decision of who the contractor is. Those decisions came in from the architect, the engineer, and Ralph Wagner. And I was told specifically, you will not have a decision in who we choose. We will choose who we want. So MCHD had a part in the process to get to that point. That part is true. We did participate in going out to the bids, sending those out, and going through that process of getting the bids. But at this point that I'm aware of, MCHD has had zero input into how that decision was made. And Tony, you can try to blame this on me, but that's not the case. This was a decision that was born out of 3 other organizations that had nothing to do with me. I had no influence. FCI was a chosen, qualified, least bid contractor by Ralph Wagner, by SSR Design, and by Davis Architecture, the companies we hired to go through this process. We paid for them to go through this process. MCHD paid for them to go through this process. At your request, you requested us to do a competitive bid because you're upset with the way Nunn was doing things. We go through that process at your request, and you throw them out and choose the highest bid, least qualified contractor. And I've heard no reason why until tonight.
Well,
But
once again, as I explained, it's not.
Hold on, Tony, I'm not finished yet. This was not me. I am not the guy who made this decision. You are the guy that made this decision, all on your own for some reason, and with no input from MCHD at all. And let me be clear about something else. MCHD has funded the Menkes Clinic, which is your biggest performing clinic. We funded you for cash on the Heil building. Hold on, I'm not finished yet. We have paid you money for cash to the Heil building because you are short on cash. Fred DeWitt leaded a parking lot curb and gutter project before you were even on board. We funded a $30 million project at the request of SHS. And then we come down to a project like this and have absolutely no input on the decision from our board. And you want to talk about trying to move together and work together, and you like our help when we have cash, but you don't want our help when you have cash on your own, on equipment going into our building. I'm very upset about this, as you can tell. I'm not saying that those are the contractors we would have chosen, but we had no input. We had no discussion. I specifically asked you, do you want input from MCHD? And you told me flat out, no, we are doing this on our own. And sir, I think it's rude. Out of all the money that we put in and all the help we've given SHS and the furtherance of trying to help you out, and this is how it happens. I'm sorry, this is not how you work together.
Dean, I know what I'm going to say next is not going to be well received, but I'm going to voice it anyway. In all of the discussion that's gone on so far, I've heard that Train is down the road going to provide some extras. I'd like to know what those extras are and for who's getting the benefit of them. And I guess I'm making an official request that when some special things are given to SHS above and beyond what the project is, I'd like an accounting for that.
Well, I'll be glad to give you an accounting of that, Bill. Train is our provider for all of our controls on our equipment. Everybody's very aware of that. And as a result of them being the partner on this project, it reduces the cost of that. No secrets, nothing's being hidden. That's the way it is. So you have your accounting. That reduces that cost by $11,000. They were actually $5,000 higher than FCI. So you net that out, they're actually now $6,000 less than FCI on the project. So they're not the highest bidder. And the fact is, we are a part of a purchasing group. We are required by CAC, our corporate company, to utilize contracts under our purchasing group when possible. They are an approved contractor under that group. We are complying with our requirement to use our contractor as we're supposed to. This has all been explained to Dean previously. That did go into our decision to do that. So now,
then I would like to request from MCHD that in the future, if you're going to meet your company's requirements, that you also need to meet our requirements of the lease.
We do meet your requirement of the lease. There's absolutely
no, you don't.
Nothing that we are doing that is contrary to the lease.
Okay.
Bill,
am I wrong on that fact? Are we not in compliance with our lease?
No, you're not.
Anything in there that would prevent us from doing this?
You're not in compliance.
That's actually not true, Dean. So don't even go down there.
Just by the fact that we're paying for the pre-work, which should be your responsibility, you're not meeting the lease.
We didn't ask you to do that. You all made the decision to do it. And I appreciate you doing so. But we didn't go to you and beg for you to do that. You all made a point of doing that at the first. And that's like, again, I certainly appreciate you doing it. But I'm not really sure what that has to do with the lease. You all decided.
Oh, maybe you better go back and read and see who's responsible for all that.
I know who's responsible for that. We are, and we have acknowledged that.
Well,
but you all made the decision to help, which I believe is the purpose of MCHD. Is that your only purpose?
My vote from this point forward will be to follow the lease to the T.
No problem. We've done that up to date. We'll be glad to continue to do that.
Keenan, do you have the lease in front of you?
I don't have the lease in front of me, but I can probably answer your questions. I think I can just give a little bit of general input at this point, if you wouldn't mind, Bill.
That's fine.
You know, when it comes down to the maintenance of the facility, I mean, we all know it's a taxpayer building, and ultimately it's something that the district has to be sure is taken care of, but the lease calls for SHS to take care of all of that maintenance, and to do so adequately, which I think was where a lot of this stems from, which was what led to the SSR report. Now, I think in the future, I think what I hear the concerns that are being voiced by the MCHD board, and I think in the future, when the district has an opportunity to assist in some of these projects, the district always has the option of specifically entering into an agreement like it did with RTU1 that would address the district's input in the selection of a contractor. And there is no specific agreement with this particular project as to the selection of the contract. So I think that's something that the board, that's for the board's consideration. Did you have, did that address what you were going to ask specifically related to the lease, Bill?
Yes.
What the lease does say, regarding larger projects is I believe the threshold is 250,000. It could be wrong. It could be 200,000. That SHS is supposed to, consult with the MCHD board on those larger projects. And, however, that specific provision of the lease doesn't provide the district court with direct leverage to overturn SHS's decision. And it's something that, I think both sides have mentioned during this conversation, but it's gotten lost a little bit is in the end, we're trying to go down the same track here. And it is a taxpayer building that is operated and leased to SHS. And, I guess that's one thing I guess we really want to reiterate is we are intending to move forward together.
Well, the other issue that's going to be before us is if we, as a board, want to move forward on phase 2, which is roughly a $600,000 project in conjunction with DOLA to the benefit of SHS, that they won't have to come up with those dollars to take care of that maintenance that they're required to do. And we have a March deadline on the DOLA application. And we need to make a decision tonight if we're going to go ahead and move forward with that phase 2 project under the understanding that we may have no say-so in who the contractor is that's picked for this project. So I'd like to entertain some discussion on the phase 2 work so we can give Ralph some direction along with SSR and Davis and try to get that put together for a March DOLA grant application.
Well, and Dean, that actually ties into another issue. We received a note from, or an email from Rick about asking SHS for the payment for the balance of the RTU1 as part of that agreement. At least my understanding from the November meeting was that SHS wanted to pay that in its entirety because they had access to other money that they could use to pay it. And as part of our budgeting process, we had budgeted, well, and we were expecting a $350,000 payment returned to us for the down payment for that project that we paid. And for 2021, we had basically rolled over the money from that, the money that SHS was instead paying to be able to fund that DOLA grant project from our side. But we need to know if SHS wants to go through with the RTU1 unit and have us pay and have them fund the maintenance account, or if we're going to use those funds to go forward and kind of stretch them by going for a DOLA grant. But fund wise, we can't do both. The money in our 2021 budget is what was rolled over from the 2020 budget.
And we understand that. And I believe the last email I sent to Dean, I actually said that we are fine waiting to see what happens with DOLA. Quite honestly, I have some real concerns about whether there's going to be any DOLA funds or not, with my discussions with them about, whether we're actually going to qualify to get that. We don't know for sure that, we're going to have COVID funds, like I said earlier, available for that. But, we're fine with, it's not that we need the cash right now to do that. And we're fine with waiting to see what happens on the DOLA side, and understand that if that money would be utilized towards DOLA, if that's is a possibility.
So Tony, are you wanting input on the contractor decision if we move forward with that DOLA grant for phase 2? Are you wanting input, or are you wanting us to handle it like SHS is and just do it all on our own, and whatever we want to do, we do? Is that, I just need some clarification on that.
But Dean, I think, as I've said, if we don't have any money or any skin in the game, then certainly y'all take it and run with it if you want. If it's not our money that's being utilized, that seems to be a pretty good indicator of who should have the priority in the project. So if y'all decide you want to go with someone else, which other than train on another project, then feel free to do so. If it's your money, then I would certainly understand us not having the final say on it.
Just a minute, if I could interject, Tony, I think you're right about there's not a lot of, not real good chance that we'll get a DOLA grant this spring. They've cut way back with their funding of projects, and they've become much more competitive. And I'd be very surprised if we can put something together that would get us into the spring, into their spring cycle, because it's going to be a project that we haven't started yet. We'll have to kind of sift through the design and pick something that we think fits the budget and that fits the priorities that DOLA sets. And that's going to take some time, and we've got until I think the end of March to meet that cycle. So I'd be surprised if we can get that done in that amount of time, and probably won't happen until their next cycle. So
I just want to say, I think it's a bad path that we're going to go down two separate ways, and we're not going to be working together. I don't think that's the intent of both boards. I don't think that's good on relations. MCHD is here to support SHS. I think that MCHD's board was under the same impression that SHS was here to support MCHD. I thought we were working together on these projects and these issues and trying to make things work together. I think it's a bad precedent that we're going to go ahead and tell SHS what we're going to do without any input and final decision. I just don't think that's a good way to foster good relations between the boards. I don't know anything about CHC. We don't have a contract with CHC. We have a contract with SHS. And our contract with SHS is who we have to worry about. SHS has a contract with CHC, and this is my understanding of how it all works. But it's not, in my opinion, it's not the way to foster good relations between the two boards. We were in a good position a few months ago. We've helped with the forbearance. We've done all we can to get SHS out of a humongous financial debacle, who almost broke the hospital. And this is what we have on the backside of it. And I think it's a bad precedence. But I'll leave it at that. If there's any more comment from any board members of MCHD, I'd sure like to hear them. And I'll let it go at that. Hearing
I've
none.
said everything I need, everything I really need to say right now.
Okay.
I was on mute there. I know I'm not a board member, Dean, but as chairman of the board, would you allow me to interject a little bit?
Yes, I would love to hear what you have to say, Keenan.
Now, I guess I'm going to reiterate that. I mean, I still think that our advice is going to be that the two boards try to work together as much as possible. Some frustration, and I'm kind of reading between lines here a little bit. So, Dean, in particular, if I put words in your mouth or I misconstrue some of your frustration, please correct me. But some of the frustration I kind of seem to hear is I believe that the district board was kind of under an impression that the reason we were going to competitive bidding was, to elicit the bids that were given, and I think they were quite aware of the requirements that SHS.
Keenan, we lost you.
Keenan froze.
You locked up, Keenan.
S was under to comply with other agreements. A good thing.
We kind of lost you there, Keenan.
Keenan, lost you for about 20 seconds. Can you repeat?
Can everybody hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank goodness I've got Bryson over here censoring what I was saying. What I was saying was, I think the some of the MCHD board members were just, they didn't necessarily, I think they were a little surprised by, like I didn't know there was any obligation on SHS to comply with other agreements that would affect the competitive bidding process. So I think that came as a little bit of surprise to them. And I think had that been made known to the MCHD board, which it now has, then some of that wouldn't have been as shocking to them. Because I think that does affect the competitive bidding process, the fact that there are other agreements that need to be adhered to or complied with that do affect that competitive bid.
Well, yeah, basically we didn't need to go through it. I mean, I was told that Tony mentioned to me that he didn't know why we went through this process because they were going to go with Train no matter what. And that was news to me. And maybe, Tony, I'm misunderstanding your email to me, but you had mentioned that you had said you don't know how this went off the rails and why we went to the competitive bid process. We spent a lot of money and time doing that. And so in the future, if we don't need to go through the competitive bid process on your side, let's not waste everybody's time or money to get that done, because we've been doing this a lot of months. And it's frustrating.
You're right, Dean. I mean, there was some concern about some of the aspects that from the beginning, and that we were, basically just making the assumption none was going to be doing the work. And I did have some concerns about that. So other members of my board had concerns about that. And so we did ask to do that. But and interesting enough, as soon as it became a competitive bidding process, none dropped out of the picture for whatever reason. But so, yeah, I mean, that was part of the initial reason we wanted to see some competitive bids on it, as we were concerned about the fact that it looked like none was just going to be given the project.
Tony, this is Bill again. If there's problems, or there were problems with none, why wasn't the MCHD board made it aware of that? I don't remember anybody from SHS coming to, and I'll grant you, I missed a few meetings. I don't remember anybody from SHS coming to the SHS board or MCHD board and making us aware of problems with the former contractor. All of a sudden, this just appears. And it appears that somebody's got a former or a contractor that they want to be doing the work. And it has nothing to do with what the other contractor was doing. We've been kept in the dark as far as I'm concerned.
Who is this other contractor?
I'm sorry, what's your question, Fred?
Who is this other contractor? Better than none. You didn't take them. So you got brought up, whether it's SDI or whatever it is.
Train.
Who are they? Who are they?
It's Train, Fred.
Pardon?
Train. Train is the other contractor.
Train is the contractor that we had actually decided to move forward with. FCI was the one that others had recommended we go with. Is that
so? We've got Train. We've got Train being the dog at the chicken coop, controlling who does what.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Fred? Did you hear what that question, your answer was?
Yeah, it's about as clear as mud, but I'll take it.
Well, it's kind of like, Fred, it's kind of like putting the fox in charge of the hen house as to who gets to eat.
I know exactly what you're saying, Bill. We've been through this before doing for the same damn thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know why our board or somebody on our board was not notified of what the situation was. And then work with both boards at the same time. That's what we've been trying to do for years. We get to that point and then they pull apart.
You can't fix a problem if you don't know what the problem is.
That's exactly what I'm saying, but I didn't use those words, Bill. So
I'm not used to operating that way.
I would really appreciate if there's something like this is going to happen from now on, that we are notified at the time when this situation is, so we can be involved with whatever transpires from there on.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify too that I don't know of any problems with none during the $35 million worth of work that we did with them that I mean, weren't common to just contracting. I think we were very satisfied with the work that they did in the big contract. And I think even there were some compliments from SHS on the RT1 changeover and some of the stuff we did this year with none. So just, if there's something out there that somebody knows about that I don't, about none's performance on our contracts, I'd really like to know what that is.
So would I.
So would I.
Yeah, me too. It sounds like none of us have been made aware of any problems.
Nope.
No.
So, Tom, what's the problem? What was the problem with none? I mean, you know, we can beat around the bush, but let's just ask it specifically. What was the problem with none?
I'll be glad to answer that question. Nobody's ever said there was a problem with the quality of the work that none did. The question came up, as I said from the beginning, when it appeared we were handing none the project and basically just telling them to tell us what they were going to charge us. And that was a discussion I did have on many occasions about the way that process was going. That was my concern. That's how we arrived at the possibility of doing a competitive bidding process. I think that none did a great job. Obviously, we do have some issues with the building. And we've had issues with elevators. We've had issues with our HVAC systems. We've had some issues along the way, but like I said, that happens. It wasn't a matter of the fact that there was an issue with the quality of the work that none was doing. I was concerned about how the pricing came up with. I wasn't involved with the pricing on the original project, $35 million. But I know I was concerned about the cost of that project and how it got to there. So yeah, I did bring up the fact that I was concerned about how we were going about basically giving none the checkbook and saying, here's your project, do it. And that was kind of the way we were going down the road in the beginning. And that was my concern.
Well, Tony, isn't that kind of what we're doing with train now?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if that's your problem, you've just turned around and done the same thing in the other direction.
Yeah.
No, I haven't, because actually
you're handing train future work already.
No, we're not.
Well, yeah, because you made a comment that's your intent of where you were going. They were going to do future work for you. How do you know if you don't know what the project is yet?
Bill, I don't think that's completely correct. I think that Train has the ability to provide services in the future, just like none does, or any other interested contractor. We're not handing Train a blank check to move forward with anything above and beyond what this particular project's going to get done.
That isn't what an earlier comment that was made tonight indicated.
Well, I don't think that comment was correct. I don't think Tony meant it that way.
Well, you know, we know other people in this country that say things and then they want to beg off on it too.
Well, hopefully no one's marching on the hospital. That's not the intent.
So Tony, is the contract benefits that you're going to get from Train, is that a benefit that goes to CHC or a benefit that goes to SHS?
SHS.
But CHC is the one who weighed in on your decision. Is that correct? You told me that you contacted CHC and they're the ones that recommended that you go with Train as part of the buying group that they're a part of. That CHC
We are a part of. We are a part of.
We as in CHC or we as in SHS?
SHS.
Okay.
To add some color on the HPG contracting, the rebates are sent via an invoice every month, and basically it's based on supply contracting. It's based on things like that. So Train is the HPG vendor, and there may be some rebates associated with that. The other discussion that Train said is there may be some potential to find some funding resources. So the bottom line is, if we can do this project a little bit cheaper, we may have some extra money to do another project and knock that out. And that's probably the genesis for the whole Train decision.
So are the rebates that Train gives back or that the buying group gives back, are those rebates that go directly 100% into SHS's pocket, or are those shared with CHC and SHS?
It's 100% back into the hospital's budget, and it's offset against the management fee, the monthly management fee. So case in point, the monthly management fee is like $30,000. If we get $5,000 worth of rebates, it nets out to the management fees $25K.
So I guess I would ask if we
So
can.
as long as Train continues to provide in a way that there will still be benefits to the hospital, or gimmies, or whatever you want to call them, then Train's a long-term forever contractor.
Pretty much.
Not necessarily, because the issue with Train is Train's expertise is RTUs. That's what they're an APG contracted vendor for, is RTUs. If you're looking at redoing an MRI room and lead lining the walls, that's not Train's expertise. Therefore, Train would not be a contractor for that. It would probably be somebody maybe.
Question. So that almost guarantees Train any RTUs that the hospital does.
It could.
Yeah.
I can't go for that. As long as you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
You know, Bill, almost everything that we purchase as a hospital is through our GPO. This is not an unusual arrangement. In fact, we strive to do almost, our goal is to make sure that 80% plus of what we purchase through our hospital goes through the GPO. So this is not, like I said, this is not an unusual circumstance, not something we invented for this project. This is something we do every day. The whole purpose of HPG and the purchasing agreement is to go out and try to negotiate these types of arrangements so that we do actually save money, and we do as a result. That was actually one of the biggest reasons we went with CHC, is the savings they brought with the HPG program, and actually the hundreds, actually I think it was millions of dollars we saved in supplies and purchasing costs as a result of being a part of this group.
Tony, I appreciate the approach that you're using there to save money for the local people. But when it then goes so far as to almost guarantee who's going to get the dollar, what chance do any of our local people, and when I use local, I use that very loosely, But what chance do those people have to do any work for their tax dollars that they're paying for the hospital?
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure that Train will be using subs that would be very consistent with what any of the general contractors will be doing.
You know none of the subs. You know none of the subs are going to be from Cortez.
Hey, Bill, this is Tom. We had a conversation or a presentation from Train, and we asked, this was a month ago, we asked Train that question and about using local contractors because of the importance to folks like you. And if I recall correctly, their response was that they do typically use local contractors. They operated over in...
Tom, I'm not a rookie at this. I've built several buildings for schools, and I know how it works. Yes, they all say that we will use as many local contractors as we can, and then they don't use any.
I think
in fact, one of the projects, the company went to a contractor and said, "Hey, you've been underbid by this much. Better lower your price so that the people out of town could have the job." And I know that's how stuff happens like that.
Well, Bill,
my understanding is that over in Pagosa, the project they just finished over in Pagosa, they did utilize contractors from Cortez. I think it was one of the roofers from Cortez that did some of the contracting over in Pagosa, or some of the roofing over in Pagosa.
Well, I hope they didn't use some of the roofers that I know, because they're going to get screwed.
So I just want to be clear, I guess, in future projects moving forward, that this is basically what you're doing with Train is a CMGC contract. It's a negotiated contract, and which is exactly what we had with Nunn. And so I just want to be clear that in future projects going forward, that sounds like the path that SHS wants to take, a negotiated contract for a mutual beneficial outcome, that a contractor does what you want and benefits everybody. I just want to ask that question, if that's what you're okay with on the SHS side. Hearing no disagreement, and I'm going to assume that you're okay with that, which is the exact contract we had with Nunn. And I guess going back to our original discussion, we are looking at a phase 2 project funded by MCHD in partnership with hopefully DOLA. I just want to hear the board's thoughts on moving forward with that phase 2 project so we can try to get it in to the queue for March, if at all possible. And I would wholly anticipate that we would contact Nunn Construction or FCI and move forward with the CMGC contract to do that work. I'd like to hear some discussion from the MCHD board. I don't think I'm on mute. Does anybody have any comment? Is everybody still awake?
Yes, I'm still awake, but I have no comment about the contract because, quite frankly, I don't know anything about construction contracts.
Well, obviously, we're moving in the same direction with two different methods. And obviously, MCHD is happy with the work Nunn did. We finished a $30 million project under budget, and they've been very good to us. FCI gave us a really good project number that was wholly qualified to do the work. So I'm just looking for a little direction from our board. I have zero confidence in Train. I'm going to be quite honest. I've dealt with Train. I've worked with contractors who work with Train. It's not somebody that I would want to contract through our board to do future work. And obviously SHS has told us tonight, Tony said, if we're funding it, we should go our own way. So I guess we're going our own way on phase 2 to fund this next project that SHS will have to pay back at some point. And we just need to get some direction so Ralph can start working with our grant writer, Chris Burkett, to get that in by March. And we're going to have to start getting some numbers and some project things together. We just can't, we have to get going on it if we want to get it in by March.
You're right, Dean. It has to be.
Yeah.
That's just, I think from now on, what needs to be done to make damn sure that any changes that are made on one side or the other, they should be discussed between the two boards. Period, paragraph. Because if you don't, we're going to go through the same thing we just did. But we do have to continue going on from here. Because if we don't, it's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
I'm all for working together.
Yes.
When obvious problems in somebody's minds aren't communicated, it causes problems.
Yes, it does.
And I don't work that way.
Nope.
Well, I can make the commitment on the on behalf of the SHS board that if we do have these issues with any of the construction that's going on, that it does come to the facilities committee and is communicated to both boards if it wasn't done in the past.
I would request one other thing, Tom.
Yeah.
I think that this needs to be discussed in total between both boards. I don't like having a committee member then try and go back to a board and explain everything that took place. Both boards need to hear the total communication.
We used to do that with both boards, didn't we, Bill?
We did.
We
Well, we
did,
better
but
go
then
do-
there was this COVID-19 problem, and our combined meetings kind of dropped by the wayside. We had a good start, though.
Yeah, we did. Okay, well, hearing no more discussion, Ralph, let's move forward with getting project description for phase 2. And we'll start to talk about how we're going to put that together with either a CMGC contract with a couple of contractors we're comfortable with, or a hard bid. At this point, the hard bid's out the window. I'll be honest. We went through a lot of process through a hard bid and it didn't do anything at all. It didn't do any good at all. So we might want to pick a couple of contractors we're comfortable with, bring them to the board with proposals for a phase 2 project, or one, or whatever we're comfortable with. And I guess we'll move forward from that point.
I'll have some phone calls tomorrow with SSR, George Augustini and Davis, and try and involve Chris Burkett in that and see if there's any chance of preparing a DOLA grant application for this cycle. And I'll get back to you guys as soon as I can.
Ralph, I do want you to check with Chris. I do, no matter however the contract comes up with at some point, I mean, whether it's through the IDP process or full, public bidding, we do have to, as the district, put that out at least in some form to a open bid. And I also would like Chris's input on that a little bit, because I do believe that the DOLA board, and I want this confirmed with Chris, don't take this as gospel. I believe they also look more favorably when whatever contractor is ultimately selected. The initial process was done through a public bidding process.
And Keenan, we going way back to before our big project got started, we advertised for proposals, same thing, but it was for a CMG proposal.
And that's
we went through that process. It wasn't just given to none. We had 4 contractors that were shortlisted. We interviewed all 4 of them, and it was a decision by, I'm going to struggle just a little bit here, but there was an executive committee that Bill and Dean and Kent and somebody else, there were 4, Steve Fusco were all on. And at that point, after that competitive process, none was selected. After being interviewed and submitting pricing in the form of general conditions pricing and percentages and stuff like that. So we did go through that process the first time, Keenan, and we can make sure that we go through that again.
Perfect.
Keenan, aren't we required to do that for the public bidding anyway, because we're a public building?
Yes, and that's why I said it. Just to, I know Ralph knows that, but I just thought I'm here. I thought I'd at least bring it up to be sure that's done.
Gotcha.
Okay.
What's next, Dean?
Okay, next on the list is the attorney report. Keenan, you have more to report on?
Yes, we've done this last couple Januaries. We're going to have to do it every January. Obviously, we have the sales tax money coming in. Right now, since the district cannot enter into long-term obligations regarding that funding, we have to do a yearly appropriation in compliance with the ballot language to apply those funds to the bond issuance that is being paid down. So I would request a board member make a motion that we do continue applying the sales tax funds to the bond issuance as required by our ballot language from the 2015.
I so move.
Keenan, I had a quick question before we moved on. Do we need, is that like a yearly allocation or a monthly allocation? What are our requirements under the bond?
So under the it's actually not even the bonding agreement, it's the continuing covenant agreements that was part of the bond issuance. The absolute minimum obligation of the district is to apply those sales tax funds to the bond debt at least quarterly. When the sales tax money was a little bit lower and we very first started applying it to the bonds, what the district had decided to do at that time was they had put a little bit of extra money in this account, and they just had an automatic payment of $116,666 going over into every month, really regardless of the amount of sales tax proceeds that were coming in. What the continuing covenant agreement says is really for the numbers to work, MCHD has to at least contribute $1.4 million, which is where the 116,000 came from, is 1.4 divided by 12. I believe last year the motion that the board made was to just go ahead and pour over the full amount every.
Okay.
I think last year, we decided just to go ahead and, whatever amount of monies we got on all three of those, accounts that we get money from, is all that goes in. And if it isn't enough for the 1.4, then we bring it back up, bring it up to the 1.4.
At the end of the year. Yeah. I would make a motion to continue doing that the same as we've done in the year past.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion on that issue? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Keenan, anything else you have?
That's all I have at this time.
All right, does anybody else have anything else for the meeting tonight?
Nope.
Motion to adjourn?
So
I'll second. That's Bill.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Everybody have a good evening.
Take
Good night,
care.
everybody.
Thank you too.
Thanks.
Have a good night.